Did you know Jesus defines Holy Spirit? In Mark chapter 13, verse 11, the yellow highlighted text that you see, Jesus teaches sometimes the words people say are not their own words. The words are from or by Holy Spirit. And in Matthew chapter 10, verse 20, Jesus teaches, Holy Spirit is our Father's word speaking from your mouth. Now I did some editing in the blue and green highlighting and the word in, and I had to add the word through because we have 4 examples of our Father's words. The first example, Luke chapter 1, verse 67, tells us when Zacharias declared John's the Baptist's life, these words had to be said by our Creator, for he prophesied John's life. The second example we have is Luke chapter 1, verse 41, when out of Elizabeth's mouth she declared Mary's son is blessed. These 2 verses prove their words were our Creator's words coming from their mouths. The third and fourth example are in Luke chapter 12, verse 12, and Matthew chapter 12, verse 28, where Jesus teaches our Creator's words will be said in their mind, and then they are to say his words. Other examples of our Creator's words coming to their mind are in the Hebrew text, where the prophets are being told to go out, and then our Creator will tell them what to say. Thus, Jesus teaches us there is no Trinity. Okay, I guess I was on. I didn't know I was supposed to be on there, so okay. This is going to be putting Isaiah into its correct order, or the best order I can give it as right now. And then I combine them together with combine the other books that I've done so far. And I've had to split those 2 books up, but in the description in YouTube has both of those, and then Psalms is still separate. But these first writers' formats, Isaiah is said to become from this king right here, the timeline. We have one date that says he's about the 10th year, I think. But some of the text has to be before then. But we also have text from a king that's right here. And I believe it's actually going to be this king who he really is going to be, because I know the stories and I'm pretty sure it's about when Isaiah or Elijah poured water on the offering, and then fire come down from heaven and consumed his offering. And right now, when I broke down Isaiah here, I had to put the text in the order of how I felt the text was presenting itself. There are many hints within the text that allows me to put some of these 4-verse groups that I found, 4-verse formats. Then I found a lot of 3-verse formats. So I tried to assemble them into the longest stories I could. And I'm going to go over this understanding of what I've done to put these together. So this text here will be stuck with King Hazaz, whatever. Anyway, this has got his name right here. So right here at the beginning of the river, there's a location that describes this place, very much so. So that's why this king is correct. I didn't change this king's name, by the way. And then what I did was I found another piece, but they weren't connected, so I've left them separate. Then what I did was I said, okay, now we have kings from these 2 kings here, which are the kings of Israel over here. these two guys here. So what it is this king here is going to have Assyrian come down and take his kingdom. And then I'm going to show you text that's found that shows that this area here, which I have listed as no kings. And by the way, this timeline is from our Creator's hidden formats. I've already done his hidden formats. I haven't went over explaining everything I've done. I wanted to get through these and then I'll go through those. But the thing here is his format is the truthful format that I'm going to say is has the best text and the best words said by our Creator. And what we've got is in this text, you can see that there is no prophecy here, and yet you can see how I'm sewing these together, and then there is a prophecy down here. Now this is because the timeline starts that it's near the Euphrates. Okay, this kingdom that he's going to hire to come down. So that means it doesn't know. But here, this text, this has to be when Assyria is coming down in the order that they're going to come down. And this is, they're going to start at Lebanon, they're going to go across into Damascus, and then they're going to come down into Israel. But you can see that this is chapter 23. I got 7 part 5, and I've got 30 part 2. But when you read it, you can tell the text is good enough to be sewed together. And this is what I'm saying is the best I can do with the text. Now, as I go down here, I'm still making corrections that I needed to. But here, this is concerning Damascus. And I was just saying that once they go into Lebanon, they can go over sideways into Damascus. So now Damascus is going to get taken out. And then there is text here that talks about these words. Since they aren't by our Creator or being said as a prophecy, this text, now I have to start explaining all the pieces that I have been finding, and in this book especially, since there is no story to put these together with, other than trying to say that these words had to be before these kings happened or close enough to these kings before the next kings are mentioned, or the text would say this. And what I'm finding is that how did they write in their history? And the best I can say is that a prophet is not known as a prophet until after that event happens that he announced. So in his lifetime, he's going to start announcing, and then things are going to happen that they're going to know that he's a prophet. The prophet starts writing his book or has a scribe write it for him, or he is intelligent and a person to write psalms. That this is what you're seeing. These formats is known as a psalm. This is a psalm, and together to make a larger paragraph is psalms. Now, he would write his words down and tell it in order. Then they would have another scribe write the events about the king at that time and the king before as it was happening. They would have writings. Then, after everybody has died, then they rewrite again, putting these two books together because he has now proven these events happened. Now they try to tell a story together, and that's what I'm trying to make these books look like in the end, as one large story, but they are many pieces. And then it's like a scribe will come and rewrite from Isaiah or whoever prophet writing in a shorter form with similar like text, trying to shorten it down. And they would do the same thing with the king as well, and then they'd try to combine the kings. And what that gave them was hundreds of scrolls. But what happened is, in a collection of these 100 scrolls, when they were teaching in their, what they called their gathering place, synagogues, that the teacher would grab a scroll and say, we're going to talk about this king's lifetime, and he'll take that scroll and read it. To better inform them of what was going on, they would go get like the summary that was written of that time, of what that person thought of the events at that time, to kind of like reinforce what they're saying is this is the best truths and these are how we get these truths. And then they have the actual text written by the scribe himself, and that's a longer form. And it is supposed to be the most accurate of words for our Creator. The best I can say is that when you're seeing text that I've got like this saying this is our Creator speaking, or these are prophecies by our Creator, can we say these are word for word exactly what he said? These are very close to what he has actually said, because I don't think he spake in this format, okay? So that's how you have to look at what I'm doing here, because in Isaiah here, example, as I'm going down, I can tell that this text didn't make it. It doesn't read taste as truthfulness. So what I did was I would take this text out and I'd try to go match it someplace else to see if it connect. But if it doesn't connect with anything, I'm saying it's time to get rid of it. Now, at the end of the video, I'll show you a bunch of them that are just single chapters that are labeled like this, that I found one piece, and I tried to put them together, and I could not do that. So this video is pretty much trying to trying to explain to you the best guessing that I've done as of this moment of putting the text together, because if I get more text from other books that have to go in here, which we're going to find in Ezekiel's time, he's going to be talking about Judah going into captivity, and yet pretty much Jeremiah does a great job of that, going into Judah going into captivity. But we have Ezekiel, and there's Ezekiel's text is going to be way out of order, because I'll get into that when I get there, but let me give you a quick example. Chapter 1 talks that he's supposed to be a prophet, and he's with the exiles that are, or the captives that are taken, and they're someplace up by the river Euphrates. And then later, can't be even a chapter later, he's now being told by our Creator to tell them that they're going to come down to Babylon's coming, okay? So into Judah. So the thing here is the text is scattered all over, and these pieces that I'm finding here, even I'm going to point out here in Isaiah, there is some that one group that talks about after Judah has been taken captive and it's left, this piece is like a story from that time. But what I did is, because I already tried to combine this book with the books that I've already got done, and a lot of it stacked up on top. So there was only like a couple pieces, like Isaiah or Haza's. He is so far back in the text, but there's other kings that have been from other texts that I've had to put there. So that was pretty easy to place. But all of a sudden, this group is going to go into that text, and I couldn't move it around too much more than what I've done, except for that one piece I was just talking about that talks about it should be at the very end. And when I took that text down to the very end text, and what this text talks about is how you could go around and count the houses that were that didn't get fully burnt down during the invasion, that they burnt the houses, they burnt the fields, they trashed the cities and stuff like that, made it unlivable for people to come back and start a life again. So when they were taking them into captivity, this was, wow, you knew that you were better off going with them than going back there, because it's pretty desolate. And if they took you at a time with like after harvest or burnt the fields, you have nothing to live on. You would starve during that winter period. So it was a better choice to them, or forced upon them, to go into captivity. But that text that I was just talking about, how he could count it, it didn't fit with any of those stories. So I completely threw that out, even though there might be one small format or a little grouping of psalms here or verses that might have been important, but I felt it just better not in the text at all. And what I'm trying to do is say that the text that I'm getting here is the best I can get without duplicating or overwriting stories or trying to put in too much more confusion in the text, that once it's already been said, and it's been said better than this other text that I've just found, I'm getting rid of it. There are places that I can't do that. I'm just saying that now they're starting to put a lot of text together. Example, there's 20 pages here that I'm adding to the text. And my pages are like 22 inches long. So when I had too many pages together, I started having to divide that combination of books together and said, okay, this timeline here has got enough to say there's 30, 40 pages that can go together. And I have a definitive date for a certain king, and then that would be, all the other texts would be before. But anyways, I'm doing this for history. So those that you're watching it today, this is a lot of gibberish to you. But when people start actually seeing how the text goes, or wanting to know how the text goes or got to be put together, I'm trying to explain that a lot of what I'm doing, I just have to say, hey, these two don't go together, but they're important enough that they're supposed to be here. Okay. Will there be a better story later and then this text be gone? Because you can see there's verses here missing. But what happened here again, these verses again, it's just started, I thought they met the 4-verse format and they went together very well. Okay. For example, that if I threw out this group here and use this group, this actually reads very well in order. I mean, that's the stunning part of putting these pieces back together, that some of them, it's exactly what they started with. It's kind of surprising a lot of times how these pieces were taken apart and can be put back together. There's probably going to be discussion a lot on, well, this writer's style is different than this writer's style. That might be true, but the story is this does go together to make this a longer story that people should know about, especially when it's talking about Jesus. In fact, when I'm starting to get so many of these pieces about Jesus now in Isaiah, it's almost like I was telling you that each of the prophets' books, they went and took these pieces of Jesus because they needed them to tell their story about how they were thinking that they could meditate and have sex with a so-called female goddess to become a god, that they were using these verses, and they used a lot of them in groups like Isaiah. So a lot of this text, I might have to say, look, I don't have an exact story, but I got so many pieces about Jesus. I'm going to just say these are, because you'll understand from reading, and I've been doing this for a long time, that I get a really good sense of who is writing. You can tell it in the writing because I'm trying to make it first person as I'm going through it, that says, I was told this. And then later it's talking about they and them and you and I type of thing. That would be written like a scribe later. But when it becomes very first person, that's how I'm going to probably take all the things about Jesus and put them off to a side and say these are going to be like Psalms, everything about Jesus. Because a lot of the Psalms ended up being parts and pieces throughout time about Jesus. So here, again, this sounds like it should go here, but it's just a small piece. So I'm putting gaps in it to see later that when I get other parts, will it come in here and put it together. So that means when I'm starting to do finish up the other books and I'm going through, it's going to take me probably a week or two to go and start meshing those next books together until I have actually stories that I know that place it, here's a king, and such knowledge given from the verses that I can say these are going to be the story. These are the words of the prophets that would have been saying these things around this time. Our Creator's Hidden formats are going to be number one, text, period. I'm doing this to say that there's a lot of understanding and knowledge of the people's thinking, especially the prophets and the scribes at that time, need to be kept just because I can find them. And then, like I said, a lot of them are still going to be thrown out. But here, I don't have any notes off the side saying what timeline this is. But I just know that it goes to this timeline where these kings are going to be gone. So it means they're very corrupt, and the people started living more, what I say, pagan-like. That means not with our Creator, trying to follow his commands. And the text will show that it's getting worse and worse. And it's going to be described in these texts by a prophet that say, look, he knows that this is the prophecy here, and now he's telling you that this is what he's witnessing at that time. So here he had prophesied this, and this was going on at his time. So it's very important to see that text like that. And then all of a sudden I got a space. These two went together, but this I couldn't fit. It wasn't, you can tell that this text was just stuck in here. When you try to say, does this follow the story? The more you read these, the more you'll get that feeling, and not everyone's going to say for sure that it doesn't, but the more the years go on, the more studying you do, when you read it, you will get to the point what I call is read tasting things, and they're a little bit different. So you can tell that they're like a different writer style. This, I felt this could be after this text, because what I'm finding here is that if I got rid of this text out of this story and then plugged this one group that I found only in Isaiah 28 part 3, like I said, I had a bunch of them that were just singles. When I stuck that in there, it sounded better than this verse here. And then when I corrected it, it reads almost like it's supposed to be there. And that's what's going to be unique, that later when I start taking these out, it's going to be hard for people to say, well, boy, that read so smooth. And that's the intent of what I'm trying to do, is to make it read smooth, like you couldn't tell that this was just a piece stuck from someplace else. And that's how I put these together. So this one's just stuck in and getting rid of this one. And again, he's talking about prophecy, and then it's like this text is coming from a prophet. Okay. And it gets here where I've got the word we and us. That could be prophet's words, or all of a sudden it would change that to a scribe revisiting the text. Okay, these two groups right here, I moved up here because I found them down here, and I can only say this again, they read taste better here than when I read from here to this. It didn't quite connect like the smoothness when you're starting to read 3 or 4 sets of these. But when they put here, it really read like, yes, those belong exactly there. Then I found this part, and this part. Because of the conversation that's above, this text told me it's almost like it has to be here with this group, because it has familiar like words to be said that haven't been said, and then all of a sudden these are saying what is a little bit more in detail. Here I decided that, okay, I know this text still isn't from Isaiah yet, but when I realized that this is a prophecy, and what you see down here, how I put this together, I thought that this is actually missing this, like this is the beginning of prophecies. So I added it, but I don't know the prophet's name yet, or can't guess at it yet. And a son from who? Don't know yet. So the thing here is all of a sudden this text, because it had rod here and I had rod here, I said, okay, these can go together because it's talking about this great punishment, fear of Assyrians, and then down here, Assyria is my rod. Same thing, but being said, like I said, very familiar like words. But it has text down here that I thought that I shouldn't just throw all this out and just keep the one piece, because all of a sudden I found another piece that I thought, okay, well, if this is here, then this would be the, like, a prophet going through and writing what it says here, because when you see how it is, my power by my wisdom, for he will boast, for I have removed kings. This story goes with what this king was saying and why he was going to do this. And it was also that why they will not they will not be punished with the rod. There are some that are going to be and some that aren't. But it's just hard for me to go through and say exactly what I did. It's more or less that you're going to have to read. I'm doing this the best memory I can, because I done this a couple days ago and I still have a cold and I'm still having to wet my throat here to talk. So before I coughed almost every other minute for 1 hour. That was really bad, but I posted it. But this is going to replace that one. Now here, it's got Isaiah, so it might possibly be some of the text first from Isaiah. But the question is that this is the only time that he's said that he naked and barefoot for 3 weeks. So this sounds like it could be said by Isaiah, but he's talking about what happened by another prophet, like Ezekiel's going to come up and he's going to be the guy that's naked. So this is what's going on in my little head. I've done these for so many years that I'm just ahead of myself sometimes when I'm speaking, and you might think I'm scattered thoughts here and there, but a lot going on in this tiny little thing up here. But it seemed like this was also be part of this, because when I'm putting 3 verses together and it's all about our Creator speaking, and you see how many pieces there are, and then when you start seeing me putting them together, you get a good idea that, okay, then this does read like these 2 pieces should go together. Now, this would have been the ending, and this is when they're, because just like the above prophecies I was telling you about, that was Tyre, and then they'd go in, they're going to take over Damascus. Well, this is like text when they're talking about they're going to come into Israel, that they're going to flee to into the desert area, Saudi, or let's see what. I guess this is the only one I can come up with right now. Assyria is going to come down through this area, and they're going to take this over, and then they're going to take this over. Now, this area here that I've got is my best description of the Sahara Desert. 125 degrees on a normal day, I guess. The hottest desert there is. So but it's the Arabs that are in this traveling back and forth, because this line here is like the green area from the river that is supporting life and can actually have grow trees, grow gardens. And then this becomes a really, this is a lot desert. I can't copy maps directly over. I have to say that this is the worst part of the desert, and then it's going to get closer and closer that this, because you know that half the Sinai is a desert anyway. So here, there's going to be this fine line that's going along here that is part of the Moses gave them of the promised land. It is this area that this text is talking about right here when they're fleeing. So a lot of the text does have words that tells us where these are going to be at, so they can be in the right order. Now I'm saying this has got to be Isaiah, and he's in Judah, and it's early King Jotham, okay? Which means the text is going to be before the dated text that we have, that he gives the date someplace right here. So what I'm saying is this is early, but it's got to be written by Isaiah, because Isaiah, I know, is going to be the prophet here. Okay? So I got that from the other books, by the way, that I've done, which would have been Jeremiah, and a lot of smaller prophets. So small books with prophets' names. So this was kind of like me having to put in, this was like the introduction of how a prophet would write. That this is what happened to me, because I know I'm fudging with a lot of the words, but I've gathered these words from many years of experience of speaking, of knowing things what prophets have done, or how our Creator appears as a light and in darkness of his light. And that's, if you're here today or within the next, say, 5 years, you're hearing me say this video. In the YouTube description, I give you my experience of our Creator making me see him 7 of the 8 times, and of his light, how he makes you see him. And then these words are kind of like the introduction of so many things that are other stories that will be easily spotted and say, okay, I understand that Mike is trying to say that this has got to be almost the beginning of him coming out, but it doesn't have a date. And that's so bad that they threw those things out that are really important. But when I pieced all these pieces together, these came out really well together. In fact, to me, it was a really good group of how that writer writes up until this part here, and then it kind of like, okay, but it's a good place to stick this text. And then these kind of I needed to put these together, so I thought that this was the best fitted area for here. Most likely they're going to be 2 separate writers, but his writing at different times, so the style is a little bit different. So the thing there is this is the best fit. Notice this is 11, this is 51, and what was this? This was 9, and this one's here 14, 30. So you can see that there was a chore here, but like I said, when I put all the words that our Creator because after you get the 3 verses and 4 verses together, you can take all the texts that are said by our Creator, and you can see, because I'm sure some of you are going to do this later and going to say, okay, yes, I get it, how he did this, that it's got to be put someplace, and it is a very good guessing. Or they're going to say, no, the guy was an idiot at this time here. He should have realized this over here and that, because you guys are going to have a lot more time to look at it than I am. Yes, and then here, this is where Isaiah really starts showing up in the text, and I can say that the wording, because it's the word Babylon now is being said, then it is telling me that this might not be Isaiah. Let me show you why. Here we know Isaiah is going to be right in here, and when this king or this commander for the this king for Assyria, he is going to be knocking on his door, and he's going to be sending him away. So he's hearing the rumor who he's fighting up there is why he leaves. Okay, and I had to even put in that text that that's what's happening, because it was lost, because he had to have a real good reason why he didn't keep going. Okay, and you wouldn't have known who won the battle. You wouldn't know if it was Gomer coming down or if it was, let's see here. Yeah, Gomer is up here. So you didn't know whether Gomer was coming down through here to fight Assyria, or was Babylon here and then Gomer come down, and they said, okay, we can win, but we can't win, so we can't get into Babylon. It's too hard to fight, so we're going to go this way. And there's many reasons why it could still be Gomer. It could be Assyria, but I know at that later time, the text is going to say who won this battle would have been Babylon. So when it says the word Babylon here, and I'm thinking, okay, it's Isaiah's time, this might have to be changed, even though I know I was just saying that it's a good place to have Babylon here. I could replace it with unknown or from the far north here, but the story is here. It's going to be an army for the battle of coming from afar. See how it says afar here? Now, does that mean it's going to be Babylon, or does it mean Gomer, or what, or who is this? But it would mean that Isaiah, this text, actually should be down in here. So because I'm aware of what's going on with the text, when I'm starting to shuffle these around, and it's going to take multiple shuffles before I find out exactly where all this text is going to go. But these parts are going to all move together the way I've got them together. They'll move as a group, because this text is too good being read together like this. And then all of a sudden, now this is text that's going to overlap more up here at this time. Okay, now it's almost like a double speaking of two stories, like I mentioned before. So that's the best I could do, would say the text that I just got done explaining sounds like a good order here. Then it's kind of like these are the books of the stories of the kings of Judah. And the text I'm going to be starting to show here is like from the prophets, from the text from the kings of Isaiah, or of Israel. So because it is actually noted this here and noted this here of who this king was. And then I had to say here is that the text that I was talking about, the city was burning before the harbor in Tyre, or of Lebanon. So these pieces are going to be again restacked and reordered, but this is the best I could get them and to keep in mind. So when I'm reading what I thought was the best grouping of order, and this kind of almost overlaps it, that they might have to go in pieces in those little slots, but I didn't want to put them there yet. These stories, like I said, sounded really good. Then I had extra text, and we knew it was to buy a scroll, write on it, okay, testify of him. But these words about Jesus here are very important. But did Isaiah say them? I'm believing he did. Because the story about him seeing the vision of Jesus dying on the cross, when I did our Creator's Hidden Formats, that text really went so good with Isaiah's story that is going to be mentioned here sooner or later here in this video that I'll show you. But these words here, these prophecies or words of prophecy, all went here. Coming into Judah, those that are coming into Judah that are swearing, so you can see that this is a timeline description. So I've kind of had to give myself a note that when I'm reading this, because it's a small piece, if I just read this, I say, okay, now they're coming into Judah, which means that when I was telling you how the text was overlapping, now it's kind of like this is the ending of this text in here. Okay, that they're the ones that are now left on the land over there, and some of them here that aren't here, because a lot of them, I think there was so many people, Israelis, in the story does say that how many people were here in the 12 or the 7 tribes or 10 tribes of Judah, they were like the sands of the sea, is what the text says. So I'm sure that when Assyria come down and conquered them, they couldn't believe how many people they were capturing, and they couldn't take everybody. And that's the story that then he returned later to get the others, collect more. So these groups I've had to add just to make sure that the format is reading, and even though I've got it like a separated, all of a sudden I just got this small piece with this small piece. But this is the piece right now that I'm talking about that goes right here with this, and I know there's going to be more of this text and more of the text, but this story is not here yet. But it is starting to show up, and it's this here story right here. And so, and then it is such a large gap before this starts talking. Just a symbol for me to understand what's going on. But this is text about Jesus again. An example, I had this one verse stuck in the middle of a group, like the one I first showed you, how that little one that I said I could take out and it reads better. Well, this one was, I think, a 4-verse in the middle of a 3-verse, but it was such a good 4-verse, I couldn't break it up or make it a 3-verse. But when you put it right here, it sounds like this should be said somewhere after this would have been said. And then it goes on, and the story does pick up. So those two went together really good. Now we're moving on text that goes into the next king. So now I've got kind of like, I'm back here early in the text and not at the end now. But this is the only way I can do this. It's pieces scattered, but they're good pieces that are connected together. Oh, this is after Israel is gone now. So okay, this group here is going to come from this last, maybe someplace around here, because I think this is where he's going to get his 15 years added to his life. So okay, if anybody's there on YouTube, let me know if the stream is smooth or not. I just got a suggestion telling me that there might be some hiccups on the way. They want me to use a lower bit rate, and that's an ongoing struggle that I've got here. Because for how long I've been doing this, probably about 2 weeks at that number. And now I've got another number showing me that this is not a good number. So I think it's just how busy people are streaming on YouTube. And since I'm not big, I get kind of kicked down in order. I don't have that many people watching me. Okay, now see here we have a time for Isaiah here. And this is what really ties Isaiah to this king as a must, or the best text that tells us that Isaiah did exist at this time. And it is a very long story, and that's what's good. Now, this would be something that, yes, it's going to be in the continuing of the story, where I'm going to say Psalms is off to the side, unless I can put the correct pieces with those words from those kings. And then into this timeline. Other than that, they're going to be, like I said, Psalms are going to be kind of like separate, because they're just... Example, it tells you how a priest would go into his meeting room, and he would approach the mercy seat. He would bow with reverence, with his hands, I think, spread open in another verse. And then our Creator's light would appear above the mercy seat, and he would talk to him. I can't throw those words out. Those are too important for people not to understand what goes on in the house of meeting with our Creator. It's never a temple. It is a house for meeting with our Creator. This here is still maybe might mean the Damascus, because I was telling you about the stories above. But this might be a city of another kingdom that might have been smaller, that was before Lebanon, before they went over to Damascus. Might have been a city for the Chaldeans. Anyways, but that's something I need to know when I put the text together. There's still little questions I've got. And then I got King for Gomer up here. Now, you know that it's odd that I've got this here, but it's just that it was there, the best I could put here at that time when I was editing it. Now it's not sounding so good, so this is going to get edited different. But these are not set in stone or in clay either, or written on hide, where when you erase a word, you would know you're erasing and trying to fudge and overwrite somebody else's words. The text went together, best I can tell you. Again, get rid of these words that just, I left them there and now I'm getting rid of them. But you can see it's tied together. The timeline is really good now. Now this, I'm getting rid of. Okay, I guess maybe pull it up this way. If I get rid of this junk and it reads just like it was fit in there, and I've told you that the first writers that wrote the text in this format, the first ones to tear it up and then start writing for their God, they knew the format and they stuck the format in there. Because the thing here is I can get rid of these and it sounds like this did not need to be here at all. This text here actually is like, even though it was at Jotham's death, this is now text about Isaiah, starting with Zeke, and it would have been, this seems like his introduction to say, I am a prophet now at this time, and I'm not a prophet at Jotham's time, but after Jotham's death. Very confusing, I know, but I gotta keep mentioning this because the text that's given that I've got to start with, it is very corrupt. And I'm trying to do my best to say, okay, if there's a way to introduce a prophet, this would be a way that the prophet would introduce himself in the story, or the historian writing it later under the book of Kings that this has happened and now this is going on here. But the text is telling me, go tell your people, like this is text, when I'm putting the words in here to correct them and make them first person, this actually does sound like the first time Isaiah's getting to know our Creator. So, and then it's kind of like, okay, then if he's writing this, then this is the next part of the story that he's going to talk about the angel putting this coal in his mouth, because now he's going to hear our Creator, and then down here is the event of this, what he said he did, the angel that flew to him. Okay, now this is where he got deathly ill. Okay, and you're going to see that a lot of this text too goes together. If I get rid of this, use this chapter, get rid of the blank that I had from here, this verse goes with this verse really well. I mean, you can take a screenshot of that and just try reading it yourself and skip through it. And you can say, okay, he know the format was missing here, and I knows the format was missing here because this is part 50 or 51. And this is 38. All of a sudden, though, those pieces that I know are missing, this one is, this piece here is this here, and this one here is this one. Just to let you know that some of these are making sense, and they're not really guesses. That, I guess at them to begin with, yes, but when they see them fit that well together, then you know that I got that one right. Okay, now this is like the timeline again about a vision from Isaiah, which usually this is like the introduction of the beginning of a prophet. Okay, that's what's so unique about this wording like this. Like I said, it would have been like under Kings, and the guy was writing and said, this prophet showed up from this time to this time. Okay, so because I got it highlighted in red, it really can't go here because we're already talking about this king. So we know that this is like a piece that should be put someplace else above. Like I said, when I thought it was kind of like how Isaiah would have been saying, this is how our Creator made me see him, and this is the first experience he's having of knowing that our Creator is going to make him a prophet. And this, like I said, because it's then this type of writing after a story that you can, this is going to be really good together. As like a prophet writing his text and not so much writing the history of what happened with that king, because the kings should have listed of other kings coming visiting, the problems with that king had, whether he was going to build up the cities or he was going to say, I'm going to now build because I can hear them coming down, so I'm going to fortify this city and try to start building up for our protection. That would have been listed in the king's book of what he was doing. And then this would have been something that's coming from the prophet being said, how he would have put the text together. But good examples right there. I've got these in red because I'm not sure if this is the best place for this text. They go together. These go together. But these are not reading like they belong here. It was just one of them that I don't know. So I'm making a mark for myself to say, okay, maybe 3 months from now, I'll find a place for them. But still, there's example, when I did our Creator's Hidden Formats, I think it took me at least 3 years, and I'm talking 10 to 12 hours a day, every day's work. And I mean, my eyes were burning, my hands flamed up, carpal tunnel sore. I mean, I wrecked my body trying to get the text correct. And then it took me another a year trying to sort the text out because I had so many pieces. But over time, they started getting better, and I'd put them, then I'd read it, and I'd say, no, now I know about that story. I need this goes closer to that story, and this needs to be moved because that's closer to here. It's just a long experience of reading, rereading, and understanding how the text is telling me where things should be. And like right here, I just seen that this is a 5th verse, so somewhere here, I think it was this one that I was going to get rid of. But I've got to now put them all yellow. And then let me take a screenshot of this. Okay. And figure that out later where it goes. So it already made PDFs up, so that'll be fixed after everything. Can't remake all them PDFs again. The train's moving down the track. and a wheel just fell off. And I know that where that wheel has to be fixed someplace later, but the train can keep going. Okay. It's an ongoing journey here. But the stories of how this king is going through, now this king is from Babylon, so this is going to be the first king of Babylon that we really have a name from. And like I was saying, in the order of the kings, yeah, I didn't have him here for Babylon, who was before Nebuchadnezzar. That text didn't come up. So now we know at this time we have this king from from Assyria. But the thing here is when they went up and battled, it was that king from Babylon that won the battle, and now he's able to tell the story that Babylon's coming down. He's going to send them. So when you're looking at how far away does that they would be knowing that these prophecies are going to be said, and then they're not really going to believe them as a prophet. So sometimes that the prophet Isaiah, who's went in and prophesied to the king that he's going to live for 15 years, all of a sudden he regroups and he starts living, and he's going to say, hey, Isaiah's a prophet. Then they'll start writing about Isaiah. So if Isaiah said Babylon, this king, then we know that that text is going to become near the end of his lifetime. So that'll be a good placement for the text. But he sent these guys to go to him, and then he showed him all his wealth. And then our Creator says, or Isaiah was told him, so everything that you just saw, Babylon's going to come down and take away. So, but he thought it was good because there will be peace in his days and his sons up until that time. So I had to add the words until that time. And then I thought now look at, here's a small piece, here's a small piece, and here's a small piece. I had so many small pieces, but I'm getting towards the end of the text here that I felt that these went together, that after a prophet speaks, then a lot of the texts that you've seen go through how Jesus would be being spoke of. So then this was coming into the text. And then we have king from this time here that can't be Isaiah. This has to be either Micah, Uriah, or Ezekiel. Okay. And this king here, he's a bad king. He's the king who started meditating, the first true king that left our Creator on Judah's side. He started meditating. He made a carving of his goddess, stuck it in his meeting room. So of any time that I speak of how when the text starts getting corrupted and why it is the way it is today, it starts at this king's timeline. I'm really sure it's maybe a few years before here, involving in these 35 years. But yes, but the good guys were still writing and the bad guys were busy rewriting and doing their thing. But this king, all this text is talking about his betrayal to our Creator, and those now were ruling in Judah, mankind. Mankind are the ones that with this sex practice. So when you're reading the word mankind, it always means what I'm just said. Those that meditate and have sex with the female goddess. But all this text has to be that way for them. And then here again, this is like the prophet at that time saying, don't worry about them, just be true to our Creator. Kind of his words speaking to the people in his good writing. So when they're reading his text in their synagogues, where the other synagogues might have got taken over, there was some synagogues with still good writers writing, and they would be writing. This is the difference that's starting to show up in the text. So let's see. Yeah, I just try to, because at this end, there's all these little pieces, but these were the best places I could put them. And then, like I said, I got spaces and just groups here. The best way I could get the groups. And now I knew this was not Isaiah, so it's kind of like, yes, Isaiah has died, but we don't have his death yet. So now this was the text that I spoke about early in the very beginning of this. Speaks to after Judah has been taken into captivity. But the story is here, like I said, but it's got so many pieces missing. And it could be said that, like I said, when you look at these pieces, you can see like this guy wasn't a prophet, this guy was a scribe summing up what he's seen, and writing it for the people. Because at a certain point, when they went into captivity, they also were sending their people up there to talk to them and tell them what's still going on. They still had this spy network saying I'm a merchant, then going up there and then trading and then seeing people and passing off information. They would be passing on writings like this about the homeland, news for them. Now these are all the pieces here. There's not that many. But they were just these little pieces that I could not stick anywhere. Nothing, nowhere. Another group came out of a long group that was probably 3 verse, and it was a 4 verse in the middle of it. But so that's why I designated it this. You'll find it in Isaiah 52. But that's how I've done the text, and now I get to really say that let's get on to Ezekiel, because I probably say the same thing about Ezekiel when I try to sum up. But it's got to be known I'm doing my best I can as guessing. So, but it's some of these words, when you read them, you'll understand that these are too important, but they are truly the first writers' formats that they had started with, meaning even the bad guys today have to understand that this text they did not start with as their own writing, because I'm showing how easy it is to find these formats. And that's what's very important. All right, this is going to be at the end of this video, and I will see you on the next one. Ezekiel.